Selling your practice creates a wealth opportunity most dentists only get once. What do the smartest ones do with it? Welcome back to Dental Talk. Today we're exploring investment strategies with Mark McNulty and Rob Mark of the McNulty Group. Mark specializes in financial planning for dentists and wrote a book called The $6 Million Dentist, while Rob brings over 2 decades of portfolio management experience. Mark, Rob, welcome to Dental Talk.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Glassman. Glad to be here.
I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, and I know you'll have the answers for it. Most dentists keep practicing after they sell. Now, what are they trying to accomplish with that lump sum while they're still earning clinical income?
Yeah, Dr. Glassman, it's a good question. So for most dentists, almost every dentist I know, selling their practice is a one-time wealth event. They're going to do it one time in their lives. And that practice sale money is going to make up probably 60 or 70% of their total family's nest egg, so their family's financial security. We have dentists that have sold their practice 10 years ago and are still practicing and loving it. But even those people, if they're going to be working for another 10 years, they want this money invested like a pension plan. That's one of the reasons we work with dentists, because they have no pension plan. So it's our job. We work with 130 families. We manage $650 million for those families. And for all of them, we're structuring their pension plan. So even if you're still working, we use the practice sale money to start building that pension plan for the one day that you do actually retire.
What's the first thing that you advise them on when they come with a big lump sum of money?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say whether or not they express it, there's a high level of fear. For most dentists, they know they can't make a mistake at this point. They've worked for some of them, half their careers, their full careers, to build up this wealth. And, they're afraid that, they make an investment, that investment goes wrong and half of it's wiped out. So I think the first thing what we walk people through is how methodically we begin to deploy the money into a multitude of different passive income strategies.
What's a percentage of return would you say is for a safe investment?
We want to average 6%. We want to average 30% every 5 years. That's our goal. So coming up with an annual target, as you know, Dr. Glassman, it's very difficult to meet a 1-year target because there's so much outside of our control. A longer holding period, like 5 years, we should get a return of 30% every 5 years.
Rob, let's get tactical. When a dentist comes to you with significant proceeds from a practice sale, how do you actually invest it? Are we talking stocks, bonds, real estate, a mix? Walk us through what a smart portfolio looks like for someone in this position.
The quick answer is we're completely agnostic as to where that money's going to go when we receive it. And by that, I mean, ultimately what we're trying to do here, as Mark pointed out, is fund that cash flow, fund that pension, protect and grow that capital for this one-time, major event in our clients' lives. So whether that's, stocks, bonds, real estate, insurance products, privates are getting a lot of attention now, alternative assets, we will look at everything and look at it from a portfolio perspective and boil that down to make the best portfolio that we can for the individual client.
A lot of dentists I know, when they get a lump sum of money, they're thinking about buying a piece of property and becoming a landlord. Maybe you can explain the risks versus the rewards of doing something like that.
I think the number one risk, you already touched on it, is you have to be, do you want to become a landlord? Someone who's been, studying and practicing dentistry their whole life. In some cases, certainly they have some experience in that regard, but in many cases they don't. In fact, many of the dentists who we work with, when they're selling their practice, they want to get away from being a landlord and an HR director, et cetera. And so I think that asset class in particular, I think we caution. It's the only part of your portfolio where you have to take a more active, or potentially have to take a more active role in it.
I think where that comes from, Dr. Glassman, wanting to become a landlord, is wanting to, because I think it is quite common, it's wanting to maintain some kind of control that they can easily understand. And I think that's one of our jobs is to sort of educate people about the different alternatives. When we talk about generating a passive income or talk about managing your pension, there's a multitude of different areas. Yeah, real estate's one of them. It doesn't have to be in the form of a landlord. We can just make a real estate investment where you don't have to go and clean the kitchen when the tenant leaves.
So a balanced portfolio is the name of the game.
Yeah, it is. It may sound boring and trite, but diversification is really important.
As opposed to a balanced portfolio, I like to call it a diversified series of income streams. That's what our goal is. Protect the money and create a bunch of different income streams.
What would be the portfolio mix difference with someone in their 40s compared to someone who's in 56, late 50s, early 60s, who's got a shorter laneway?
It wouldn't be as different as you might think. And the reason is because we're optimists in terms of our clients' longevity. Meaning, so our 56, anything over 7 or 8 years, it has a long-term time horizon, is considered a long-term time horizon in our business. And the 56-year-old is going to be investing, we're going to be financing their retirement paycheck until they're in their 90s.
So apart from the mix of the portfolio mix that we're talking about in order to give them security, the dentist security, some dentists are in debt. And like a lot of people, when they sell their practice, is that the first thing you recommend is that they pay off their debt?
Absolutely. It's the easiest part of my job, pay the debt.
Guaranteed rate of return.
Rule number one.
Particularly right now. I mean, we may have had a different perspective a few years ago.
Yeah, when rates were ultra low, we'd probably spend a bit more time thinking about it. But today, it's an easy answer.
We want to be risk off right now, Dr. Glassman. Like I said, there's a lot of dentists that are speculating and should be when they should be protecting.
Mark, I can see your passion for dentists and also the passion that you have for dentists to continue practicing after they've sold. What makes this such a powerful strategy?
I like the idea of dentists continuing to work after they sell their practice for a multitude of reasons. The number one being that they're just happier. Going cold turkey retirement is not always the most successful way for a successful business owner to transition. So continuing to associate in the practice is sort of like leaving training wheels on, in training wheels for retirement, if you will. But I'll tell you more than anything else, almost every dentist I talk to who continues to associate after they sell, they start enjoying dentistry more than they ever have. And so in addition to having the best career years of your lives, you're also increasing your spending by $100,000 a year.
So they're taking this money the proceeds that they got from the sale, they're investing it at a decent return, and they're spending their cash flow pretty much to live day to day.
That's correct.
Amazing. You talk a lot about passive income, and I mean that's for lack of a better term, that's money as far as I'm concerned. So for dentists who've sold their practice, how do you help them build investment portfolios that develop these different income streams? And maybe you can explain the power of passive income to our listeners.
The whole idea of passive income is, it's making money on your money. It's making money while you sleep. And so, similar to what we talked about before going through our filters, we try and do the same thing. We're trying to do the same thing at a portfolio level with the different levers that we can pull there. One, and again, there are lots of different ways to do it. We do like using dividend growing stocks to produce passive income.
So to give you an example, so this is one of the ways that we generate a passive income. Like a passive income is an income that you don't need to generate with your hands or your brain. It's like Rob said, it's your money making money. So as we said before, Dr. Glassman, we'll go through on a macro level which areas we should be in. Like we talked about in 2022, we didn't want any fixed income and we didn't want any real estate. Now we're still sort of saying we don't want any real estate. Not yet. There may be a time coming. We do want fixed income. So that would be one income stream. Once we decide on the income streams, like one of the income streams we create is through dividend growing stocks. Now Rob's talking about what are the filters we use to select those dividend growing stocks.
Makes total sense. This question, Rob, Mark, either one of you, or you can both pitch in on that one. As dentists, we are notorious for getting pitched on investment deals, amazing investment deals. You can't lose. What's your filter for evaluating these opportunities? And Maybe you can tell us a story about the time that you saw someone make a bad investment, a bad bet, and what should they have watched out for?
My answer is somewhat cynical, but I think it's the truth, and that is when you're getting pitched a great investment, a great investment deal in a real estate opportunity or a new tech startup, from your neighbor or your buddy at the golf course. The fact of the matter is these are rarely good investment ideas.
Your money is constantly in competition, it's being in competition with other ideas.
There's a constant tension on the portfolio for competition for capital. We limit the number of investments that we would put in any portfolio. And therefore, if there's a new idea that comes, whether that's a different asset class, a different stock, a private company, what have you, it has to compete with the businesses that we currently own in the portfolio. And so, Warren Buffett always says the preferred tenure for holding a stock in his portfolio is forever. And I feel the same way. There's only a certain amount of really high quality businesses in the world at any given time. And so if we find one, we want to invest in it and hold on to it for the long term.
That's fantastic advice. Either one of you, Rob, Mark, when dentists sell their practice, what's the biggest tax mistake that you see some of them make, and how can they avoid it, more importantly?
Two things. I think not being purified is something I always feel really bad about so they can't get their capital gains exemption. And then a lot of dentists wind up having to work or at least own the practice for another 2 years while they are purified to get the capital gains exemption. So I would always say, Dr. Glassman, just purify early. And another mistake they make is buying universal and whole life insurance as a retirement planning tool. They're sold it based on, they say it's a tax efficient way to finance your retirement. It almost always underperforms. If ever you receive a projection from someone selling you a product and you can see that they're telling you in the projection that you're going to lose money for the first 15 years, never invest in that.
So tell me how those work, how those as an investment strategy, a whole life, for instance. A lot of them have a 15-year pay, and then at the end of 15 years, they're finished paying. What is the advantage of that as an investment?
There is no advantage. It's sold as an advantage, but if you actually look at the underlying projection, you're actually losing money on. So, for example, let me talk specifically. When we looked at one for a client not too long ago, they say the investment component of it is going to grow tax-free. Now, except what they don't say is that in this fund, there was a 3.5% MER on an index. So that means you're making 3.5% less than you would any other investing outside. So yes, you're saving tax, but you're also making less money. So you never let the tax tail wag the investment dog. The permanent insurance should be only sold, in my view, for estate planning purposes, not for retirement planning purposes. Because the returns, you're losing money for too long, and it's too illiquid. You're trapped in this strategy. It has to work. And we don't ever want to have illiquid strategies like that.
Makes total sense. Okay, time for the closing bell. Quick fire questions, and I want your immediate take. This or that, no overthinking, just gut instinct, okay? All right, so we're going to have some lightning round questions. Rob, this is for you. For a 45-year-old dentist who just sold their practice, and I think we already talked about this, pay off debt or invest immediately?
Yeah, easy, pay off debt.
Okay, Rob, stock market's at an all-time high. Is a correction coming?
Yes. Yeah, the next correction is always coming. I don't think we got a bear market coming, but you can expect at least 10% drawdown in the stock market per year. We're overdue. There is one. There is one on the way.
All right. Well, Mark, passive income, top choice. Dividend stocks or real estate?
Oh, right now, dividend stocks, not real estate. That's for sure.
Okay. And to both, the worst investment pitch you've ever heard: crypto meme coins or my buddy's startup?
My buddy startup.
Yeah, all of the above.
Right.
But yeah, the buddy startup's always trouble.
Well, Mark, Rob, thanks for these helpful insights. Smart investing today gives you the freedom to practice on your terms, which I guess is the best advice. Next time on Dental Talk, detecting oral cancer before symptoms appear. Don't miss it. Next on Dental Talk.